It's a classic challenge that anyone who is writing a book or wants to write a book faces. How can I write faster? When I did the numbers for my recent Jesse Q. Sutanto writing half a book in 3 days challenge, I was very pleasantly surprised by how many words I was able to write per hour. So today I'm going to share with you some tips and tricks for what I do to write more quickly. So first of all, the most important thing is, do you actually have to write more quickly than you currently do? And the answer to that is no. If you are watching this video because you're like, I should be writing 6 books a year, I should be able to finish a novel in a week, I should be able, even these are extreme examples, but even if you're like, I should be able to write a book a year, that's reasonable. I don't know why I can't do that. Why does it take me 2 years? I should be able to, I should. Please, just take a moment, take a breath, be gentle with yourself. I am not creating this video to encourage anyone to go against their own pace. I'm not creating it to tell anyone that it's not worth writing unless you can write really, really fast. I'm not encouraging people overworking themselves, sacrificing sleep or their hands, their wrists, any of that stuff. I think the pace that you write is perfect and it's fine and it's wonderful. And the most important thing is that you are taking care of yourself and you are not burning yourself out, right? So if whatever pace it takes you, whatever your pace is to write a book or to complete whatever creative project it is that you're doing, I think it's great. I think it's wonderful. I think you don't need to put any pressure on yourself to do things in any way other than your default setting, and any way other than what makes sense to you. So that is just, first of all, a little permission slip there to say you don't have to write faster. You really, really don't. It's not like you have to have X number of books out in the world so that you can be a success. There is no magic number for that, and I have certainly felt that okay, I want to have more books. I got to have more books. I got to have more books. I don't think that feeling goes away. I don't think that at some point I have a magical stack that's this high of the books that I've written. I'm okay, well now I'm I have enough. I think I'm always going to want more because there are always going to be more stories that I want to write. So I want to be comfortable at a sustainable pace to write those. And that's what I would encourage is, if you feel like you have a lot of stories in you, if that's why you want to write more quickly because you have a lot of stories, find a pace that is sustainable for you to write those stories, whatever pace that is. So considering all of that, let's get into the tips, the things that I do in order to be able to write a little more quickly when I want to write a little more quickly. The point behind this, I guess, is sometimes you do have deadlines and sometimes sometimes you just want to lose yourself in the story, and it's easier to do that when it's coming more quickly. I'm not sure. I don't think I have to explain why you might want to write more quickly. I think it's natural that we are going to want to write more quickly. We always seem to want to do things more quickly. So with all the disclaimers in place of why you don't have to actually do it, let's talk about how I have been able to do this. Now, the first thing, and I know my fellow intuitive plantser, I wouldn't say I'm a true pantser, I'm a bit of a plantser, might not like this, but having the vaguest bit of an outline is really helpful for writing faster. And this, for me, generally, it's one sentence for each chapter, and it does change as it goes on, but sometimes, if I don't know what's happening in a chapter, I'm not going to be able to write that quickly because as fast as my fingers can move on the keyboard, I just don't think, if there's nothing coming to them, then they're not going to be able to write that fast. So sometimes this means, for me, just getting a little clarity on what's happening in the next scene, the next part. Generally, this comes from taking a little distance from the writing. So maybe going for a walk, maybe taking a shower. I know those are two classic, writer brain off, now the ideas can come sort of activities, but they do tend to work well. Even going for some other creative inspiration, just taking some distance can be helpful to get a little clarity of what's coming next. It can be written down. It doesn't have to be. I'm not a detailed outliner. I'm not going to tell you you have to be. Just having some idea of where the scene is going next does help me write a little more quickly. The next thing is doing whatever it takes for you to get into a flow state. So a couple pointers with this. First of all, for me, I find that I don't want to be in my like conscious thinking, oh, I should put this sentence together in this way. That will be nice. I want to be more in my subconscious. So I did some training years ago. I got certified in like hypnotherapy and all sorts of stuff like that, a lot of subconscious work. And one thing I remember hearing a lot in that training is the subconscious like speed. So when I was working with someone and I'm asking them questions to work on different techniques, you're kind of like, come on, answer quickly. If you're thinking about the answer, then I know you're in your conscious mind. I want you to be in your subconscious mind, answering from like a deeper level, not something that you are rationalizing and thinking through. And I think that's similar with writing for me. I want to be in my intuitive subconscious mind. So speed helps for that. So that's part of why I want to write quickly, but also part of like what I'm aiming to get to is not thinking like, oh, this sentence is good or this sentence is bad, I should fix this sentence. And I know those are different writing styles. Some people really write beautiful prose, and that comes from them thinking through how exactly they're going to construct this sentence. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm not talking about how to write beautiful award-winning prose really, really fast. I'm talking about how to get your story out of you very fast. So this is first draft. This isn't like, okay, now it's a finished product and sell it and be a bestseller. So one area where I noticed this, I would say when I was writing, there was one winter when we were living in like a one-room farmhouse, and I wrote 2 books that winter because we were in this small space, and it was such a meditative time for me. I think I had this like every evening I'm just going to go and I'm going to write in my work in progress, and I felt like I was just sort of sitting back and enjoying the story, and sort of being surprised by what happens, which was a good indicator to me that I'm in that subconscious, a bit more of a flow state. So another factor with getting into that flow state, and again, this is not something I like to hear, but it is a little bit true in my experience, is spending longer times writing. So generally I wanted to go for a 15-20 minute sprint. I have this initial aversion to the writing, so I want to do it as quickly as possible. I want to get my 500 words or 1,000 words or whatever done and be done, and I can move on to the next thing because I really don't want to do it. And that's just this natural, I think, human thing where we're like, I don't want to take a shower. I don't want to, whatever the thing is, you're like, I don't want to do that. And then you go do the thing and you're like, well, that was actually a really good thing. So this is one thing I noticed when I was doing that 3-day write half a book challenge, is I was spending a lot more time writing each day. Generally it was about 5 hours, I would say. And because I was spending so much more time in the story, and still I was doing 15, 20, 25 minute sprints, maybe 30. 30 was the max, 15 to 30. But because I was doing multiple of those, I was really, every time I went back to it, I was really just sinking right back in. So again, I don't really want to hear it. So of course I don't want to say it, but there was, for me anyway, a benefit of spending more time. So not saying there has to be 5 hours every day, that was not sustainable, but even just, if I committed to an hour a day, wow, I think that would make just a world of difference. So I don't know. It was interesting to track how my like words per hour change, my rate changed throughout each sprint of the day. It was like, sometimes you would think, oh, the first ones are gonna be really fast because you're coming in with all this fresh energy. And that wasn't always the case. Generally the ones that went the fastest was where I was picking up right in the middle of something that I knew what was happening. I knew where it was going. And I don't know, it was just such a fun experience to lose myself in that story. And like, I really felt like I did. Like I would come back the next day, like on day 2 or day 3 of that challenge, and kind of be like, whoa, where am I? Like I have to reacclimate myself as I sit down in this story. I'm like, wait, okay, yeah, oh, wow. So it was like being in an alternate reality, which I don't know, I think is a really, really cool experience to have without, you don't have to go on some sort of like psychedelic trip. You can just really immerse yourself in a fictional world of your own making. Another tip that I have for writing more quickly is do not correct your mistakes. So I really tried during that challenge, I really tried not to fix typos. I was like, the backspace key does not exist. It is not your friend, ignore it. So I'm seeing the text, and I mean, of course, if I realized that my hands were like shifted over and I was writing words that were actual just nonsense, yeah, I would have fixed that. But when it's like, so for example, the word coworker, I just kept misspelling it and writing work with W-E-R-K. And I was like, I'm just going to keep it that way. I had a character whose name, this is my next tip, so I'll explain that, whose name hadn't been assigned yet. And so I was just calling them coworker daughter. And I was like, well, I'm going to just spell it with an E, worker with an E every time, because when I want to go find and replace, it'll be a little bit easier. So, all right, whatever. So that was sort of like a almost intentional typo. But even with regular typos where I'm just like, oh, apparently I forgot how to spell coincidence or intuition or whatever, some word that's like a couple syllables long. I'm like, it's fine. I know what I meant. I'm just going to keep going. And that felt weird at first, but the more that I went on, the more I got used to it. And it really did help, like, not break up the flow. I found it really helpful. Yes, it did mean it was far from a clean draft and I had a lot of fixing to do, but I think it was worth it because the story didn't get interrupted and it really poured out. I've seen people, when they talk about this, recommending that in order to write cleaner drafts, you could practice typing. Like, outside of your writing, you could go and do like Mavis Beacon. Did anyone do Mavis Beacon typing in like middle school? Because I sure did. Go back and do like practice I probably won't, because I feel like I spend enough time typing and I'm okay with fixing some typos here and there. It's kind of nice to have something to do in edits. I'm not trying to write something and immediately have it printed and published. But yeah, I don't know. I think that typos are your friend, because when you make a mistake and have to fix it, it's sort of like, you're talking and you're saying something and you think it's really great. And then someone's like, oh, actually, you made a grammar mistake. And I'm like, thank you for that. But no, I forgot what I was going to say, Another tip, so as I mentioned, I had these brackets. I have a lot of brackets. Sometimes I don't know the name of a character until the draft is finished, and I just call them like man. And that's kind of funny. I don't know. I sort of enjoy it. I find brackets are so helpful. Brackets and caps. And I know people tend to use TK to mark those sorts of things because that's their way. TK doesn't really occur naturally much in the English language, so it's a good way to mark something you can come back and fix. I just like to use brackets, and I use this both for like names I don't know, details I'm not sure about, something I want to look up later. So again, for writing quickly, I don't want to get distracted while writing by the need to research something. And again, if you're writing and you're writing prose and you want to have it perfect from the beginning, yes, of course, research as you go. But for what I'm talking about here, I'm talking about speed, and we all know research can be a real trap. So for example, if there are some details, like when I'm writing some of my books and there's like a food scene, I'm like, oh, we're going to fill this in later because I'm not sure what they're going to eat. I want to figure it out later. I don't want to get so distracted by thinking about delicious foods and making myself hungry that I can't finish this scene. So I'm just like, yep, they're going to order bracket delicious food and it tastes like, come back and fix it later. And those are fun things to come back to in edits, I find. When I'm going through edits and I'm fixing like all my typos and stuff, I love it when I come to something and I'm like, oh, I get to decide like what sort of fish they're ordering at this restaurant. That's great. I hadn't thought about that. So yeah, it feels, I know, very unnatural to plow forward without knowing like a character's name or where they're from or not spelling things correctly. For me, though, those have been really helpful things with just, maintaining speed and being able to get into like that sort of subconscious flow state. My final tip, and this isn't one I can talk about with much personal experience, but I can say a lot of people do have success with it, and that is dictation. I have done some dictation in the past. There was a summer when I had some wrist issues going on because I tried to rescue my cat I successfully did rescue my cat from being stuck in the bars of our balcony. He thought he was going to fall. He thought the balcony was trying to bite his leg off. I tried to help him, so I got bit because he was obviously very scared, thought he was having his leg chewed off by a metal beast. But anyway, after that, I didn't really want to do a lot of this movement because it was pretty ouchy. He's perfectly fine. We made up. He felt very, very sorry for doing that. Everybody is okay now. That was my little foray into dictation. I used a tool called Otter AI, which was something that which was something that was used in like Zoom meetings and that kind of thing. I did find it quite good with being able to understand what I was saying. I haven't really dived into dictation very much. I have seen people, Alyssa in the books, I watched some of her videos about dictating and like hitting wild word counts in a day. I don't remember how many. I feel like it was 20,000 words in a day. It was a lot. I'll find the video and I will link it because that is quite impressive. That might work better for some people, for some different ways of processing information. I feel like for me, I am more like I'm uninhibited when I'm typing. I think when I'm talking, I'm going to be more self-conscious and I might not approach it in the same way. I'm not sure. I think I could enjoy doing a little mix of both, but yeah, for those who want to dive into dictation, you might just, apparently if you can do 20,000 words in a day, I mean, why not roll out a novel in a week if that's the case? So I don't know, I hope there were some helpful tips here. So I'd love to know what you're going to try, if there are any of them you're going to take on board, if any of them were new to you, and I will see you next time.